Start recording. Hello.
Hello. It's his space. It's my space. It's our space. It's third space. Do 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 do. Yeah. Welcome.
Keep going. I want more. Give me the refrain.
I don't know. I thought about this like 3 seconds before hitting record. So, I'll refrain from refrains at the moment.
This is a unique podcast because I can see you.
I can see you too.
This is strange.
Yeah, eye contact's weird.
We're doing a live podcast.
Well, they're all live.
In the sense that you and I are in the same physical space.
I would like to call it in person. Seems like better than live.
An in-person podcast.
Yeah, I'm in your living room.
Visiting.
Yeah, I'm visiting.
Visiting me.
And I find myself staring at the microphone as much as I'm staring at you. So if you think that I'm not looking at your body, I'm just looking at the microphone.
Okay, that's fine. I'm used to people looking at my body.
Well, you think about conversations. You make eye contact, but you don't make eye contact the whole time. Yeah. So where do you look, and why do you look, and what directions, and how long do you hold eye contact? You want to be polite, you know.
I've thought about this before, eye contact, because it can be really weird and very noticeable. But when I'm not thinking about eye contact and I'm watching someone speak, I'm kind of like looking through their nose. Like I'm kind of looking through their face a little bit, but at their nose area, so that my eyes can take in their whole facial expression. I don't know if other people do that or not, but I'm kind of looking. I'm not looking
into
their
face.
I'm
whole
looking at their
face.
I'm not looking into their eyes. Sometimes you do, if they're making a point or they're, giving you a look. But if I'm just generally watching someone speak, then I'm looking like through their nose. Which is a weird phrase, but that's the way it is.
Well, when you said that, I'm like thinking, do I do that? And then I don't, oddly enough, as much as I self-reflect, I don't know what I do. When I'm teaching, I make eye contact with lots of people so I can bounce around and I have a rhythm. But when I'm having an individual conversation, I make eye contact, sure. But I realize it's like breathing. You don't think about your breathing. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wait, is it 2 seconds about? And then you look away.
You're now thinking about your tongue position.
And you become conscious of eye contact if you are in maybe a crowd or walking down a hallway and you make eye contact with someone and you weren't really intending for that to happen and you can tell they weren't either. And then there's a eye contact, look away, or
do we greet each other?
What do we do in this moment? And so it's a mysterious. The word contact suggests a physical. Are there other words about contact that aren't physical? Because it feels as powerful as something physical almost.
Yeah, sure. There's the distinct impression that someone's attention is on you, like you're being paid attention to when they're making eye contact with you, and that means that what you do matters in a sense because someone else is going to notice it. I like to play a game, not a game really, but just kind of run a perpetual experiment when I'm walking around the lake out there. We just got back from walking around the lake. But you pass people, constantly walking around the lake, and you look at them when you pass. And it's interesting to note the number of people who look at you and make eye contact and what they do, or if they just, keep their head down and continue walking. And, part of what they do depends on whether I'm wearing, like, a bloody jumpsuit or not. But no, usually, I think a lot of that is culture dependent, because
definitely.
Sometimes people will be like, "Hey, how you doing?" And they'll give
mighty
you
fine weather we're having.
Yeah,
it's hot.
Sort of, oh, it's hot out.
It's muggy. It's air you can wear. Yeah.
And then other times people will just keep their eyes down and walk on by, and they won't look at you or anything.
I used to think that was rude.
Me too.
By the way.
Yeah, definitely.
I've come to think of it as I actually still have that impulse. We were raised in the South, and when you're driving. In my neighborhood, you give a couple finger wave from the steering wheel. Yeah. It's just what you do. When I'm walking in my neighborhood, I wave at every car.
Yeah.
Give them the fingers.
Every driver you pass, give them the fingers.
Just give them,
the good old Southern fingers.
But that sort of Southern hospitality, even in just walking past people, cashiers are going to say greet you more often, and I think all of that is a good thing, but it shouldn't be a bad thing if you choose not to. So I have to kind of. My impulse almost I've internalized that value, and then I look for the eye contact when passing someone. Obviously, if it's very crowded, I'm not looking to greet in a subway or something, or I don't know, or in a crowded area. But if it's a feel thing. If there's one person on the aisle and we're both heading, I mean, if they're checking out the crackers in the aisle, I'm not going to ask them or expect them to stop examining the items and then greet me. But if we're just kind of meandering along, I realize I have an expectation for them to look, and when they don't, I used to think that's rude. And but
I don't know what race has to do with it, but let's try to keep that out of the podcast, please.
Because of the item I chose. I should have said gushers. I don't know. Whatever it is.
Did you not hear
stores.
what I said? Let's please keep the race discussions out. No discussions of gushers.
What are
It's a derogatory term, I'm sure.
Yeah, for people who cry a lot, it's derogatory. We're supposed to be a kind podcast.
Jesus, we can't publish this.
No, but eye contact and politeness.
You say that you don't think it's rude for someone to just not participate in that, but I kind of think it's basic. Like, you don't have to say, "Hey, how you doing?"
Right.
Or you can wear. You don't have to do all of that. But I think it is basic courtesy to if you look at someone and your eyes meet, to just give a little, just a little acknowledgement. Mm-hmm. I acknowledge you. Like, we see each other.
You're
a human being.
Yeah.
We exist in the same space. Like, I think that is the most basic courtesy. If you go below that, like if you look at someone and they're just stone-faced, and then you look away, I think that is rude. And obviously that depends on culture, where you are. I mean, like,
but where does culture meet social intelligence? Is what you're saying? Like that? It's
maybe I'm just saying that some cultures are better than others. My cultural preference is for people to be a little bit more courteous.
Southern hospitality.
If you make eye contact when you're passing someone, at the very least, give a little nod. You don't have to be all cheer. Look, I mean, I don't like all of that touchy-feely, super cheery fake.
You're not asking for
stuff.
fake stuff.
I'm not asking for that. I'm just asking for acknowledgement. Like, yep, how you doing? You don't even have to say how you doing. It's just a facial expression. It's the how you doing expression.
Well, like I was saying about social intelligence, at some point, acknowledging humanity is a necessity, and it suggests how we behave. Like, so I don't know if you could, someone who navigates social intelligence and society well will acknowledge more often. So if you take the person who avoids eye contact frequently and head down, and then I'd like to see how that plays out big picture. If you could do some poll of, here's 50%, here's the population who does not make eye contact and shies away from interactions, and here's the ones that embraces and is friendly. Like, just look at like interpersonal relationship success in business, I'd just like to see all of that play out. And how much is that? Yeah, how much is that social intelligence and how much is that just culture, and what's the overlap there is really interesting to me.
Yeah, there's probably some of it is social intelligence. I don't like that phrase.
I guess, maybe the word intelligence gets. We need to have a clear definition of intelligence, not in this discussion necessarily, and then we need a term that says someone who adapts well socially versus those who don't.
I think that if you're going to use psychological terminology, then agreeableness is the trait you're looking for there. Mm-hmm. Because but the thing is that term agreeableness doesn't really convey your skill, or not to me anyway. It doesn't suggest you're skilled at social interaction. It just means you care about social interaction.
You're more likely to be agreeable.
You're more likely to cultivate a skill in interacting with people. But I imagine there are people who are agreeable who are not socially intelligent, as you might put it. That are just bad at it. Maybe and that's where I think confidence comes in, because you can imagine someone who is agreeable, they care about pleasing others, but they have really low confidence. And so they're actually, they're looking down, they're not making eye contact, whatever. And that seems like there could exist people who are both agreeable and not socially intelligent or not confident, whatever.
That's why I like the term. Like, I don't want to assume I understand why you don't like social intelligence, so I'll ask you why you don't like the term. But the reason I like it is social navigation is difficult and complex, and those who do it well are using, I'm just using the term intelligence, they're using some social skills, you could just say social skills, I guess, but to navigate all those complexities. And whereas agreeableness to me suggests in a confrontational situation, you're more likely to just you tend to not want to engage in the confrontation, and you want to agree, you want to find a solution. And that might even mean going against your values or whatever.
Well, so I think agreeableness, like, I mean, it's in the name. You want to agree a little bit, but I don't think it's necessarily that. I think it's that, I mean, maybe there is some conflict avoidance, but I don't know necessarily that it goes hand in hand with, you know, caving or agreeing. But I think it does mean that you want people to get along, like you want to resolve conflicts and stuff. The reason I don't like social intelligence is kind of what you mentioned. Like, there's a lot of conflation in terms. Like, I think that someone who's a big proponent of the idea of social intelligence might conflate disagreeableness with social unintelligence, or social whatever. Yeah. You know, not having social intelligence and being disagreeable are the same, but they're not. So I guess we're talking about two different things: a skill at interacting with other people and your propensity for, you know, smoothing over conflict and stuff. Two different things, I guess.
Do you think the term intelligence needs to be narrowed, because we try to say that everyone's intelligent in some way or another, so therefore
it's just a worthless word.
But I really believe it's okay to say, all right, we're going to narrow the word intelligence, but we're not going to also inflate it to being so. It's not the ultimate thing, right? Definitely. There is social skills, whatever word you want to use there. There's creativity, but I don't think because you can create a masterful painting, it's really, there's something vastly different about creating a masterful painting and be a master of the various techniques in art and being able to do complex mathematical computations. Sure. Like, that seems like intelligence seems like an ability to retain, process, and output information and synthesize data and information. That seems like we should just narrow it to something like that. Although I know terms like data and all those terms need definitions, but we need to narrow it down. We can't just be like, oh, that was so smart of you because you like told a clever joke at a good time. Like, that doesn't seem like intelligence. That seems like something valuable. I don't want to demean it. It's just labeling. I can see why labeling something social intelligence is it's making a claim that I'm not sure I agree with.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of apply the word intelligence to everything. I agree. I think it should be narrowed. And, you know, I guess there is the term general intelligence. That's what they talk about in the literature. You know, when people talk about intelligence, they say general intelligence, and that's a thing. But more broadly, culturally, we don't think about that term or even know what that term is. We just talk about intelligence. That's how smart you are. But I definitely agree. Like, intelligence isn't as important. It is important, but it's not the end all be all. Like, you can definitely imagine like an actor or something. They don't have to be intelligent if they like can really dive into a role and portray what they're doing. I don't think you have to be intelligent to do that.
Or not very intelligent. Obviously, you have to memorize lines and be able to conceptualize what it's like to be another person.
Sure, but you can be of average, completely normal, general intelligence, problem-solving ability, and be an excellent actor, I think.
Yeah,
and like like a comedian, you know, you don't have to be, you know, some kind of brainiac to be able to tell a joke, or to be able to, like, you can be more of a character in your person, in your physical being. You can be like a giant dude with goofy eyes or something, and comedians like make that part of their shtick.
And what people I think might hear you and misconstrue is that you're saying they don't have something exceptional. You're robbing them of whatever exceptional trait they possess, but you're not. You're just saying it's not intelligence. It's something else. It's the ability to. It might be empathy. Like comedians have, to me, an enormous amount of empathy, or at least something going on where they recognize the absurdity in the human condition. They recognize the sort of universality in it. They tease it out, and they find something that can make you laugh about it. And it's beautiful. They take darker areas, typically, right? They're taboo areas, and there's tension because we haven't addressed it, and that's why tension and taboo. That's why comedy is so frequently dirty. Is like, we are not allowed to laugh about this, and so the laughter is more explosive when you tap. You're given permission to go, ah ha ha ha, finally someone's recognizing it, and they're making it lighter, and I need this. And so laughter is almost this. Laughter is the best medicine.
Spoonful of laughter.
A spoonful of laughter helps the
laughter makes the
comedy go
away,
down.
Keeps the comedy away. A spoonful of laughter keeps the comedy away. That's what they say.
Spoonful of laughter keeps. Yeah, okay. Yours is better.
Guess I have more of that empathy.
Yeah. So eye contact, right?
Yeah, man, eye contact's great. So, yeah, we've been hanging out. How about we kick things off, now that we've kicked things off, with a I mean, it's been when was our last podcast?
Too long.
It was like 2 months ago. Or
About
something.
2 months, yeah, sounds about right.
So you've been like doing your job, and you need to get your priorities straight, basically.
Yeah, well, to really quick, I mean, just to recap, not personal, like in depth, but the end of school years are always mad. Like they're crazy because you have to. First of all, if there's kids that are struggling, you've got to address all of that, and then you can imagine a time execution, all those expel, whatever it is.
Whichever word.
I think I use those interchangeably. Yeah. It's both developing, tweaking the final, delivering the final. It's figuring out those grades, all the end of year meetings, but then on top of that, the sort of how do you wind down a year. In distance learning situations. And then I launched and did an intensive summer program, and I won't go into all the details, but it was just I got to play the role of a department chair essentially, in which I had 5 teachers that I was coach was really my title, and I coached them in terms of I gave them lesson plans. They created their own, but in conjunction with me, and I observed them teach daily, every single one of them daily, and I gave them feedback.
So you're spending a ton of time on all of this stuff.
It was really rich and rewarding, but it was arguably busier than your typical mid-year or just what's.
Would you say that it was more or less draining than when you're in the classroom with kids?
More. It's more draining and less pleasant. I guess that might be why. It's actually hard to, because you kind of take if you think of your satisfaction bar, you might not notice if something's very taxing and rewarding, your bar stays full, right? But
you're saying you're kind of at the same level.
And this was, I don't know if this were long term, I'd probably get out of teaching, which is a sad thing to say, but.
Yeah, because it's all about the inseminating young minds to you. It's all about the students, right?
That wording. Yeah.
That's what they say. That's an educational term. So maybe you're just not familiar with it.
Inseminating young minds.
Yeah, it means to
plant seed.
To inseminate information.
Yeah.
So you're inseminating information into all of your students' heads. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Aren't you an English teacher?
Yes, and that's precisely why I'm giggling right now. Giggling is such a when I say
masculine
giggle, it doesn't.
Giggle.
Yeah, when
I just let out a masculine
giggle. It's my masculine giggle. That was my actual voice, by the way. It probably sounds so weird.
Some people hate that.
Yeah.
Thing, right?
In fact, when I do that, it's my evil guy laugh, and when I mean, I can do it much louder, but when I do that, hands down, guys, boys and men, young boys in the classroom like love it, and girls hate it, and it's just an interesting divide. You could guess. I don't know why exactly, but girls hate it. Like they are vocal. They are like, and guys some are laughing so hard. It taps in. Whatever happens, it's tapping into someone or it's something.
Jealousy.
Wait, what were we just saying though? I had an idea.
Talking about.
What's it like teaching on Zoom essentially?
Oh, yeah.
And I haven't normal. It hasn't felt normal yet. It hasn't felt normal. So therefore, of course, it's more taxing and exhausting. And you have to be. There's things I can walk in. I can say for an AP class. This will sound strange, but if I've read the article, I've taught it before, and I know the concepts. I mean, for the most part, an AP class wants to come in and they're eager to discuss something. So all I have to do is say, read this, and I'm going to have you develop the questions, you develop the response, and I can put way more on them.
That way you don't have to do your job.
Well, that's what it sounds a little bit lazy, but it's actually more important once you've done the framework for how to ask questions and how to think about a piece, and then I coach them through the conversation with some questions if necessary. Mm-hmm. But the way I see it is like, here's this piece, play with it, and I'll make sure you're playing with it in a way that's fruitful and beneficial.
Sure, right.
And so take that to Zoom, which is unfamiliar to all, so no one knows how to have an organic conversation. There's just so many barriers, like taking yourself off mute, or even if you do all take yourself off mute, even just that, like
you can speak over each other.
Yeah, and there's the diffusion of responsibility in which a kid can just sit back and go, I'm muting myself. I actually had talkative classes go very quiet on me. I'd pose the question, there'd be silence. I'd say, I'd make a joke, like not all at once or whatever.
Sure.
And they don't feel there's no social pressure to speak out. They could sit back and go, oh, look at Daniel or the teacher struggle here.
All you have to do is look away from the screen, and you don't feel like you're in the moment anymore.
Yes. And conversely, by the way, in those So like there were obviously some classes that didn't go as well as I hope, like in any teaching situation, but particularly on Zoom. But that didn't even last with me. When you get off, you close out the class, and then I'd go, I'm glad that's over. Whereas if I had a bad class in person, that kind of it would affect me more. I'm gonna say it would haunt me a little bit more. And it did not haunt me as much either. I guess that's all to say that it all feels less personal. No one has reached their norm. So if it were normal, perhaps discussions would be richer and people got used to it and they would accept it. Because there's resistance to accepting, knowing it's temporary and it is inferior. Of course it's going to be completely dismissed. But if you went in going, I must accept this, that's going to change... well, everything, right? Like the way students behave is how enjoyable teaching is, right? So if students misbehave frequently, teaching's miserable. Yeah. And if students behave and are buying into what you're doing, teaching's pleasant. And yeah, it's great. So it's just going to be less, as long as the students are resistant, and I can understand why they would be, then it will be just a worse experience. But that's the irony. They're making themselves more miserable too, and they don't understand that power. Even if you told them explicitly, they don't fully understand that.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of that, I think anyway, is because education is not voluntary. It's not students choosing to self-educate, and so of course you're going to get kids tuning out. And if they're at home in their own bedroom with their own computer that they're usually doing their own things on, right, and they're expected to keep their attention focused on this virtual classroom, I think that's a lot to ask.
It is. Well, even psychologically, it should be a lot to ask, because we need to say the bedroom's a place for relaxing and not for you need a clear delineation of time to work and time to play. I think it's healthy barriers, and now we're blending everything, and it's why people go stir crazy at home. Like, why not all work from home forever and that'd be fine? I mean, you work from home, and you could probably talk on this, but there's a clear delineation though. You probably have your work room. You don't.
Yeah, I work in there and I don't work in there.
He's pointing to his work spot and his non-work spot, just so you can visualize.
Yeah, man, it's great that I can have you narrate what I'm doing.
He nodded his head a few times earlier, and I thought to myself,
gesticulating wildly.
You did. You nodded earlier, and I thought, in agreement with me when I said something like, I don't want to presume, but I know you don't like the term social intelligence because of these reasons. And you nodded your head, and I thought, they're missing out on this experience of him agree. They can't see that, but whatever. Yeah. So,
well, hey, how about we do? Since it's been a couple months. Let's do a Superpowers and Drawbacks.
I love that. Yes.
It's been a long time. I've thought of some more in the meantime.
I'm glad.
And I think I've looked at my list, and I think I'm gonna go. I have a lot of really, really good ones, but I think I'm gonna go with a 4 this time.
4. By the way, quick aside. My girlfriend listened to this, loves the Superpowers and Drawbacks so much that she it almost feels plays along. I think that's the appeal. Anyone's seeing if they agree or disagree with our decisions, but it almost feels like if it were a little more complex, it could be a party game. I think this would be a fan favorite if I were I don't know. I love it. Maybe love the ideas.
I could imagine a card game where you get to draw the cards and you have to trade with the other players. Maybe you can force a trade, and then you come out with your set of Superpowers and Drawbacks. And then I don't know how you win. You just put them down, and win. Everyone has their set.
No, you and I have the right answer, and if they answer correctly.
Oh, right, yeah. Cool. Well, that's just reality.
Yeah. No, it's also fun for them to predict what I pick, or if you could somehow write down what you think I'd pick. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's all interesting stuff. But let's play the usual way. But it's a thought that it's a thought of you predicting what I'd say and why, and seeing how close it would be.
Since I write these for this podcast, a lot of times I do write them thinking about what you'll choose, and that helps me balance them as well.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, without further ado, the first superpower is called Sequel Summoner.
Okay.
So for this superpower, you can summon from the future yet to be made sequels of entertainment, like movies, video games, or books. These cannot be shared in any way with anyone else. If you reach too far into the future, you may receive unusable technology, i.e., hover disks. I like that I wrote that. But yeah, that's the power. So you can't share it, but you can experience media from entertainment.
And you
from
said
the
I can
future.
keep going in the future. So if I liked, say, The Fault in Our Stars, I can get The Fault in Our Stars 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. But the only point that you're saying is if books become obsolete and for some reason it's hover books.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
hover books. You may not be able to actually use them.
Well,
but,
I would,
or like, for example, if you were in the
it's a device,
in the 90s and you sequel summoned, something from today,
and I got a Blu-ray.
You got a Blu-ray. You would just be
Netflix.
Right. So there is some limitation. And that's why it's only a 4,
Okay.
and you can't share it as well.
But okay. Some quick questions. Well, what are my questions? Are they guaranteed to be? So sequels suck often, right? That's kind of a thing that plagues. They're just cheap cash grabs. Are you giving me some assurance that this is not a cash grab?
No, not at all. It's summoning it from the future. So if you reach into the future and get Jaws 4 or Shark Attack 3 or what's a movie we've been watching tons of B movies. Transfers
3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
Troll 2. If you reach into the future and grab one of those, it's gonna be what it would be. If it's a cash grab,
that statement doesn't make sense though. Like there is no The Fault in Our Stars 2, but I would get it, right?
No, you wouldn't get it if it won't ever exist.
Oh.
Well, hold on, wait. Let me think about
that's a
that.
big. That's
Wait,
a very
stop.
okay.
Let me think about that because that might be too powerful. If you can say, "Give me Fault in Our Stars 2," and nothing appears for you, then that allows you to predict the future in a way that you could potentially manipulate in your favor.
That's interesting. You think that's power? I thought
because you could say, give me, in 1980 whatever, you could have said, give me Star Wars, Episode 5 or whatever, and Star Wars, it might not have gone anywhere potentially, and if you didn't get anything, then you would know not to invest all your money in Star Wars stocks.
See, this is how I conceptualized it, is because I get to enjoy it for my own entertainment. Like then I basically am getting more of what I like a lot, no matter whether it was produced or not. Like I'm getting an equal quality of the thing I like. This is what I imagined you saying. Really, when you first said it was, doesn't matter if they, because there's so many things that don't have sequels, right? Obviously. In the grand scheme of things, few things have sequels. So I would even apply it to music, like a spiritual. Yeah, well,
in modern times.
In modern times, sure,
and
and blockbusters get lots of the highest.
Explain what a blockbuster is.
Not where you rent videos, tentpole film or big budget agreeable films that everyone's gonna kind of like. It's gonna have action and love and suspense and major, CGI or at least special effects. Anyway, so these giant films get sequels frequently, yes. Yeah. But in all of things produced, entertainment-wise, obviously very, very, very few have sequels, right?
I don't think very, very, very few.
I would put it at
I would put it at
5%. So you put it at 30, I put it at 5. That's interesting. So
a lot of things have sequels.
A lot of things, a lot of popular things.
Maybe I'm off base.
You're if you were to gauge popular things, it gets obviously the more popular.
Maybe there's some bias because the things I hear about are popular things, and so
that's
they're
what
more
I'm
likely to get
saying.
sequels. And there's a lot of things that go
Do you know
off
how many
and die.
books there are, and they don't have? They're just here's a great book, or here's a great video game, or here's a great movie that's like an indie film or something.
Great Gatsby 2.
Yeah,
or the joke that I make every Christmas,
the Bible.
Is Bible 2 out this year? Blasphemous.
But that's what. So I legitimately thought you were giving me sort of the pleasure if I found some diamond in the rough or some hidden gem, and I was like, I want a second or a third that I could get those, and that I can't share those, but I get my own pleasure from them.
I think that's fair.
And they are of equal quality at least.
You can't. All right, so I'll make it this way: you can't share them. That stays, and they're also. It's also non-predictive. Oh man, but I feel like if you summon it, it should eventually happen.
Okay, yeah, because I'm not rewriting. But only I can share it. That's what you're making it isolated, so it doesn't matter if it doesn't.
But that means you could say, I'm summoning Fault in Our Stars 2. Yeah. Why did you pick that? Anyway.
It's a weird one. But
I'm picking Fault in Our Stars 2.
Because it's not going to happen is why I picked it.
And that the act of you summoning that means it will be made. That's too powerful.
It is, but I thought because the rule, you're making it nice and neat that only I can share. Yeah, and I can't share it. I can't write it myself, right? I can't use it to then it's just my personal enjoyment. So it's isolated, doesn't affect the future. I'm not using it. There's no loophole in which I'm using it for future gains. This is an entertainment thing for me.
Okay.
Is that fair for the parameters?
That's fair, but I still am trying to decide whether if you summon a thing, does that mean it will happen, or could you summon The Fault in Our Stars 2, fully enjoy your personal issue of it, and that's it. And then it never really happens.
I think that's fine to do because I don't want to rewrite the future.
I think that's how we have to do it in order for it to stay a 4.
Okay. And same with video games. Does this apply to
all entertainment?
Music? Like, so I get a spiritual successor, like if I want it, like
Third Eye Blind, Fourth Eye Blind.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird because musicians necessarily evolve and get a new sound. And you kind of go with, but it doesn't matter. Okay.
You can't control what it is. You may get, like, let's imagine that you're pulling from an alternate timeline in which they did make a sequel. So maybe Third Eye Blind does change their sound, and you get something that you don't really like.
Yeah, so there's a chance I don't like the sequel, but you're guaranteeing me quality, like, because there are things that are like the big movie that then has the next one that was a straight to home VHS copy that were shitty, and just like purposefully. Okay. So it just seems to be like, realistic, whatever that means.
You might, if I use this power and I said, a few years ago, I want more Star Wars. Yeah. It's been forever since Episode 3 came out. Give me more Star Wars, and it reached into the future and gave me J.J. Abrams Episode 7.
Yeah.
I'll be pissed.
Yeah.
Or Episode 8.
And if there will be a future one, you will get that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it that way.
That was a long question-asking thing, but yes. Okay. I think I generally
understand that one.
I generally do. Yeah.
All right. So the other, hopefully this one. Maybe we'll have less discussion. This superpower is called bromoerotic.
Bromoerotic, okay.
Yeah, so people of your sex find you extremely good looking.
Okay, I like that.
It doesn't change their sexuality, but it might affect the way they behave towards you. So they might be intimidated by you, or they might assume that you're famous. Members of the opposite sex see you as you really are.
So no change.
No change for how women see you, but men find you extremely good looking.
And that could sociologically impact the female's perception of me.
Potentially,
but they don't physically see me as different. Like they just. But if they hear, man, this guy's, look how awesome he is. He's such a badass, and like that might elevate.
It could elevate, yeah. It could cause some weird friction.
Yeah.
It could cause, other men to defer to you or to compete with you more.
Yes, I bet so.
Yeah,
right? Like I bet all of a sudden, like they have challenges. You walk into a bar and they're like, "You think you're so great?" That kind of thing could happen.
Could happen. I mean, this is superpower, so I think. I put it as a superpower because I think it's more good.
I agree. I think it's more good for people to be. Like they think I'm just.
And, I mean, you could use it professionally as well. Like if you're getting,
if I have male bosses, they are gonna treat me better.
Sure, right.
They just are. Good-looking people, under the assumption good-looking people get treated better. That's pretty well.
That's an assumption. I think.
Yeah, that's pretty well proven. Yeah, good-looking people get treated better, and whether they even consciously realize it or not. Yeah. So okay.
And now the drawbacks. So the first drawback is called the whistle man. Any music you're exposed to is replaced by whistling.
The same tune.
Yeah, the same melody and everything. You're not the only one who hears the whistling, though. The music is actually replaced by whistling
when I'm present.
You're hearing
okay.
it. Yeah.
I've not replaced humanity's whistle.
No.
Just when I'm there. If I go to a club.
Yes, if you go to a club, it's whistling playing.
I can't even whistle. I was going to go doonch doonch doonch. That's you go in. It's just a bunch of yes. Everyone looks around. What is going on?
Yeah. So this affects the radio, movie soundtracks, live concerts, everything. So you could have
movies get really goofy all of a sudden.
I mean, you could turn into a super villain with this thing.
People hate you going to movies.
Crashing a live concert.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? It's actually kind of fun. Maybe I should move that to the other side. But it's also torment.
You're giving up Music. Well, most music, not whistling.
Lots of
Melody,
music.
little tunes are still hitting it. Like, you can get stuff stuck in your head, and yeah. But God, giving up music is a big deal, really big deal. So.
And the final drawback is called self-destruct. Very simple. A button is placed on the exterior of your body somewhere of your choosing.
Okay.
If the button is pressed for 3 seconds, you will instantly and painlessly die. The button cannot be removed or disabled. Amputating the location of the button will cause another to appear on your forehead, so don't even try it. The button has enough resistance so that simply moving naturally runs no risk of pressing it accidentally.
The reason you say 3 seconds is intentionality, right? You're not sleeping and rolling over and dying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you basically don't have to worry about accidentally self-destructing yourself.
But someone else could.
Someone else could. Yeah.
If they were intentional. If they wanted you dead, they could.
If they knew about if they saw the button and, regardless of their knowledge of what the button did, if they pressed it for 3 seconds, you would die.
That's interesting to put at a 4, and I think you're probably right. But that's a horrible, like very dangerous, but probably not dangerous at all. Like, I don't know. That's torture. Because you're giving me something that if I choose to put it under my armpit, say, and that's probably where I'd put it.
Inside of your thigh.
Yeah, somewhere that's not, on the taint probably. No one's going to accident. Like, you have to really. What are you doing?
Did you know? To interject a thing. Did you know that it's really popular in Japan to? I think it's called. What's the word they use? Like gancho or gucho or there's some kind of word, but they do this thing with their hand. It has nothing to do with gooch, but they do this thing. They put their hands together with their first fingers together, and they go
like a gun,
and they jab people in their gooch right there. And that's a thing that like kids do
like
to
as
each
a
other,
joke.
like as a joke.
Yeah.
That's a common thing. So don't go to Japan. If you put your self-destruct button there, don't go to Japan anymore and
really
interact
weird.
with like
really
teenagers.
Weird. I mean, that's. I didn't know that, first of all, and like that sounds like something that would very much take hold here too, right? Like there's just
maybe we'll be the pebble in the
middle
pond.
school boys. This is like I didn't know this, but there's this. Well, I did know this. I don't know why I said that. Led with that, but like in middle school, you just start hitting each other in the balls, and like that's what you do.
Yeah,
like
sure.
or it's just like.
Tap.
Yeah, or showing them each other or whatever. Like you just get into these gamification of kind of a pain. There's no. I don't know why.
Did you ever play the game Thumps?
Yes. Yeah, where you would
you hold your hands in like kind of a clamshell shape, and the other person thumps your knuckles.
Yeah, and people would get good. Like some people could the way they would take their middle finger and thumb, and
I was one of the best.
You could. I remember you specifically could. Bennett could go up to a tree and like knock leaves off, like, and they would. And it would make a pound. You could almost like as if you got a rubber band and a tight piece of paper, he could hit with that sort of. He could hit with that sort of pow, like leave a mark. Kind of funny that people. But anyway, those sorts of games like pain inflicting, and I have obviously if you think your way through it, you're in middle school, you're hitting puberty, you're just
bravado.
Your body and bravado and so just kind of hitting each other is this sort of simple acknowledgement, and it's almost it's a show of affection almost. I mean, unless it's mean, then that's bullying. That's a different thing. But
I mean, I'm sure I don't remember the details, but I mean, I'm sure there's animal studies of adolescent animals who wrestle
doing similar things.
That's just part of development, is testing your physical bounds.
And the question becomes then, as an educator, by the way, like we are always emphasizing, being well behaved, but if it's a normal expression that you don't want to encourage too much, like dude, stop, you can't hit each other in like class, that. But like we need a space on campus
sucks.
No, they can't
the
wrestle around in class. My job's to say no. But say in between classes, the natural teacher impulse is to say cut it out if they're horse playing in the hallway, but if it's during lunch and they want to wrestle around and it's obviously two friends, the thing is, we have a long lunch period. I'm just speaking to our culture. Like they're done eating and they're hanging out and throwing the frisbee, but then they're wrestling over a frisbee. What's difficult as a teacher and like with liability is like
Knowing when it goes too far.
Yeah, knowing when it goes too far. But let's say we can safely assess it's two friends, and but the horseplay doesn't look good, right? It doesn't sell well for the school image. Like people shut it down when in reality, like this is a healthy expression, and let them. Like where else can they do this?
Well,
like let them do it.
Even at younger ages, have been cutting out recess and stuff.
That's a nightmare. Like that's a nightmare. We need to physically express ourselves, and we need to do so healthily. And is it so bad that if two friends... I mean, I have a memory of David and I, like, when we were in second grade, and he pegged me with the... we were playing, like, basically tag with the dodgeball type. That red ball with the print on it. It actually kind of hurts. Kickball. They don't do that anymore. Yeah, kickball. And, like, he hit me in the face too close, and I kicked him or something. I don't remember. But we were ticked at each other, and then we had conflict resolution, and because he was he put his leg up when I was trying. It doesn't matter. We hit each other too hard, and we were ticked, and I was so mad, he was mad, but like I needed to have that interaction. To prevent that interaction would have stunted conflict resolution abilities. Like this is sort of let that stuff happen. Let them wrestle a little too much, and then let them. Obviously, you gotta interfere. Anyway, let's go back. let's circle back to.
Yeah, I mean, you could have just self-destructed David in that moment. Like.
Yeah, I could. Well, I mean,
or he could have self-destructed you.
My belief, really quick, my belief is that like people would not intentionally kill me, and I think I'm fairly certain I could do the button drawback and get off scot-free. The problem is if I'm wrong, I'm so freaking wrong that it's like I'm dead. So
at least you're painlessly dead.
That is true, but I don't want to die, and so that risk is astronomical. But like I think it's a very small chance that someone either wants me dead, like, and if like let's say you get into like a spouse wanting you dead, if they really want you dead, you might die anyway. So this just makes it easier.
What do you mean you might die anyway?
I'm saying that if you were in like a poor marriage of 30 years and they decided they wanted to poison you or kill you in some way, that
now they have a button to do it.
Well, they have a button, so it's easier. But like if they wanted to poison you, that's just life. That's outside of this. So but they're probably not gonna want to do that. So I'm just not. It's tempting because I really believe that that's not going to be a drawback. Like, I think
it's all about risk.
So let's recap really quickly.
All right. So sequel summoner.
Yes.
Bromoerotic.
Yes.
The whistle man.
Yes.
And self-destruct.
Okay. So my knee-jerk, if I'm to choose, which I actually don't find sequel summoner and bromoerotic to be stuff I like
care about.
Yeah, enough.
Right.
But so my knee jerk's to walk away. But I think I'm gonna choose.
I mean, don't you love? I mean, you love books and you love reading. And you
I love that, but I also love. Manipulation, like social manipulation, and
you
that
love your
really. I mean, half the population, if not more, my bosses are equally, if not more, likely to be male, and like that upward mobility edge is I think statistically significant. Meaning, not just upward mobility, but just being heard. They'd want to hear me. In fact, I think I'd walk into a place and they'd want to hear me. And so that might outweigh part of the joys of experiencing any entertainment is sharing, and you've eliminated that. So I actually think that becomes. I love talking about a good book. If I cannot do it, then my enjoyment takes a significant hit. It's, for me, a significant hit. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say if I were to choose one, it'd be the bromoerotic. And then I'd probably take the button, because giving up music is.
You still get to listen to the best, highest quality whistling, and so does everyone else.
Yeah, I'm not worried about ruining music for them when I'm around. No, just because when I'm around. If it were all of humanity, it's a no-go. I can't take music from humanity. That's so selfish. But you didn't make it that way, so I don't want to give up music. So it would be bromoerotic and the button, but I think I'm walking away. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say I'm walking away from this one. I don't need it. Yeah, I'm walking away.
Interesting.
I have a feeling you might not agree. You probably. Can I have a guess
Go
before
ahead.
you?
Go
I
for it.
guess you walk away, but I'm guessing if you were to take it, you'd take whistle, or you would take. Excuse me. You'd still take the button, but you would take the sequels. That's my guess.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think I would walk away. I think that the button is a small enough risk that I should manage. I think I could manage. And Sequel Summoner, sure, I liked sharing, talking about things that I...
Okay. So I was wrong.
I enjoy talking about the entertainment and things that I do, but I enjoy it even if I don't talk about that stuff. And I would really enjoy being able to summon sequels from the future. In fact, the whole reason I came up with this is because I was reading a book series and reached the end of where it currently is, and I thought, I really would just like to continue reading instead of having to wait years for the next one. If only I could summon it from the future. Hey, that sounds like a superpower. And that was kind of it.
Yeah.
I think I would take that. Bromoerotic, I don't really care about. That actually, to me,
could be negative.
Sounds like an introduction of chaos. You would eventually learn to predict the way you would... you would learn how you interact with people, and you would understand when you walk into the room and you see the way that the guys look at you or behave, how their behavior changes. You would learn how to manipulate that, probably to your favor, but it's still introducing chaos, and you can't, maybe eventually you can predict how the interaction of women, if you walk into a room with a man and a woman in there, and the man's behavior changes really awkwardly because he's starstruck or intimidated or whatever, the woman's going to be like, what's going on?
True.
She's going to be really
There's
confused.
discrepancy,
and it's going to introduce some sort of chaos or friction, and it's just introducing unpredictability, which some people can manipulate that to their favor, but I don't really care about that. I don't really care about earning the admiring or jealous looks of my bromos.
Right. Well, and by the way, obviously the majority of the population is straight, and so if I see a male that I find, I'm just trying to think of a moment where I've encountered a guy who's just really good looking, and he struck me in some way. I don't know. I don't know how much that impacts my I'll just be like, God, I wish I looked like him. I'm a little jealous. These feelings happen. And he might subconsciously carry some more authority with me, maybe, and probably so. But it's not the same thing as if a gorgeous woman and I'm bumbling over myself.
If it was the opposite, then that's
if it's the opposite, that's a 9 or a 10 on superpower.
Yeah, then it's superpower. Yeah, but that's not it. Anyway, I don't really care that much about that one. I almost would not want the additional attention and the burden of having to deal with someone judging my appearance. I would rather people just view me normally. So that one doesn't call to me. Sequel Summoner does. The drawbacks is both of them are actually kind of tempting. Whistleman, I didn't think about it when I was writing this, but the havoc that you could wreak by going to a concert and turning it. I would become a patron of the rap arts because
rap as a whistle doesn't really work, right?
It would work. I'm pretty sure there are at least a few famous rap songs that have whistle hooks anyway.
Sure.
But this would be changing the rap to whistles, and it would be glorious. It would be so funny.
So if they're on stage and they're talking, and they're just whistling instead. Is what you're saying?
They have to then whistle.
Yeah. And they're experts at it. They somehow are whistling.
Yeah. I'm not gonna pour over the details. Does it make them start whistling, or are they singing and yet the sound is whistle?
Yeah, whatever. But it's either way's amusing.
Either way's amusing, and it turns it all into whistling, and I find that hilarious. The Whistle Man. That actually, you could become a villain, a real life villain, by being the Whistle Man. That's hilarious. Think how funny it would be.
Go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the national anthem starts playing, and it's it's some famous pop star or whoever, and you're expecting to hear her do her whole yodeling type national anthem, and instead it's whistling. Hilarious.
And when she's doing so the
funny.
music itself is a whistle, and their vocals are a whistle. So you get the layers, you get all of it.
all of those guys. It's all whistling all the time.
Very funny.
Oh man, maybe I could finally make people stop playing Christmas music so much.
I love Christmas music. It feels like December when there's Christmas music.
Oh man, it's so very. How weird! I play the guitar, so how weird would it be that I'm like trying to play the guitar and instead it's whistling?
You're tuning your guitar. Yeah. It's a little off with its whistle.
That's really funny. That's tempting, but I also enjoy music. I do think music is a little overrated, but
that's a weird statement though. Such a big. That's just like fun is overrated. Well, I know it's a little not the same. It's not the same, but.
I mean, people talk about how music is like emotionally impacting, and I get that it can be, but.
A lot of people will agree with this statement. My parents and I have argued this. I don't know if I've said it on this podcast, but I've made the statement that I think music is a component of identity. People at least feel and take it that far, that their musical, not just tastes, but like what moves them. It's a communication different than words. I won't say beyond words or greater than words, but we are rhythmic to our core, and so something about music moves us. And when I say moves us, yeah, physically we want to dance and express ourselves, but like it's just a unique form, and like because music and dance are hand in hand, so all of a sudden expression through that rhythm, there's something profound about it. And so that's the statement. Music is part of identity, and my parents adamantly reject that and just say it's a fun, it's in that more surface level of this is a fun form of entertainment, but safely within the confines of entertainment.
Yeah, definitely with your parents on that one.
I
mean, I get that some people can get really into music, and that's fine.
But not just some people. I feel like it's most people have a relationship with music, and like it shapes.
I'm not sure that's true. I think maybe people think they have a relationship with music, or maybe they're projecting some sort of relationship onto music, or maybe music is just a conduit for them to think about their relationship with some type of emotion.
Okay, I could get there, because think about how we think historically or growing up. When you think about the 90s, is not music part of... When I watch a 90s movie, why it feels like the 90s is the... you go into that.
I'm not saying I don't enjoy music, or even that music can't be nostalgic.
It's a marker for the era. It's a way we. I guess I can't fully explore because I'm not musically knowledgeable, but like what music, the community, how extensive or how profound or how important is music as a form of expression is difficult to quantify. Obviously, that's why.
I mean, I think that if you could, in some way, snap your fingers and music never existed and doesn't exist, then civilization would continue. Like, yes. I don't think it's that profound and innate and like part of who humans are. Like, I think that it would just continue. And some people, it seems like, think that it is so core to our being that you can't get away without it. And I think you could. I think that music is an excellent and amazing vessel, or a conduit, like I say, for our emotions or our expression, or needing to get up and move or whatever. But I think that you can find other conduits for those things in the absence of music.
But I wonder if what you're saying is it feels like this is overlapping with someone saying like, oh, the literature, entertainment, literature, storytelling, all of those, you snap your fingers and we could still have our existence. Like we could, like, all the math and the buildings and the things to create society. It's just like, to what degree have you why is life worth living versus like life will be like?
So I think that there's a huge distinction between the value of literature and the value of music. And I think you would agree.
Yeah, I do agree.
Literature is explicit in what it communicates.
There's values in literature.
Like, you can convey knowledge.
Yes.
In written words.
Sometimes allegories can speak truths that just statements can't.
We have this huge body of cultural literature that kind of influences our behavior on a massive scale.
It's almost like a psychological map of how to be.
And music doesn't have that. And I'm not saying music isn't influential. Like, I totally think it is. I'm just saying I don't think it's as core to our being as some people say. Yeah, I feel like I'm giving music a really hard time.
You should though, because I think you're providing an interesting counter experience.
Music,
Everyone's just sort of in the effort maybe to be agreeable. Everyone's just like, yeah, music and identity, boom, and like yes, and they move on. And they don't, you're saying, hold on, music and identity. But if I were to make a list of hugely important facets of personality and maybe identity, I don't know, but we get into like humor. I don't know. I haven't thought through this list of big things, but I mean, it seems to me if we're making a list of 20 things, music might make that 20.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can. I think there are people who invest their identity into music, just like there are people who invest their identity into their car, or their interior decorations, or their clothes, or whatever. But I don't know that.
That's a good fashion is fashion and identity. I'm just saying
it's overrated. That's all. I think people maybe put too much emphasis on it, and there are people who, they'll sit at a concert or they'll come home and turn on some music and then they'll cry and they get all emotionally attached to the music, and fine, do it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that. I think maybe there's some kind of projection going on, which is probably the point. That's probably actually
I would say it is
what's
the point.
Desired. I'm just saying, I don't do that, and so I don't have that kind of relationship with music. For me, music is more like your parents say, it's a nice, entertaining thing.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge to be pursued in terms of creating music.
Yeah. I mean, and I tend to actually agree. Like, my parents raised me in a home without, they would disagree without music. I mean, obviously they played music, and in Christmas they play Christmas music, and they played music on the radio sometimes, but like a lot of people like have linked memories with their parents and music. What did they play? Did they play some country music? And like, so you have a relationship with southern rock or something like that because your parents play that. I don't have any link between my parents and music. I don't hear a song and think of my parents, or think that's what my dad would play when I was growing up. So I don't have that, and consequently, like, my musical knowledge is in the it's a joke. I don't have that, and so I don't. But at the same time, like, my emo stage in college was so profound to me because of music, or like these stages I've gone through. I can almost mark them by music.
That's true,
so I don't know.
I would say that my parents did raise me with music. I mean, that wasn't what they were trying to do, but like, they listened to country music, and so Kid Bennett was listening to country. I loved Garth Brooks and Alan Jackson, and like, even to this day, like, I can remember 90s country lyrics and stuff. Which is funny because I don't enjoy country
you don't even like it.
But I probably know more country lyrics than... no, that's probably not true. I know lots of normal lyrics, even though I can't call them to mind.
But they can happen when the song's playing. So it is doing... Okay, so...
There's some similar sounds. I'm lyrically... That's just another weird thing.
But that's... Okay, so what's weird for me is you play a song I haven't heard in 10 years, and I'm going to... And let's say I had memorized the lyrics at the time, then 80% recall, I can sing along. What the heck is going on in my brain? That like... So if there's a link between it awakening something, but that's why poetry and rhyming. So that's music, right? The pattern.
There's additional context.
Yes, patterns.
More than just the words, because there's a pattern of melody as well.
Yes, and so
you just have more context. If I just say in a monotone voice, I pledge to the flag, then you're gonna know what that is because you've memorized that phrase.
And you even sing it. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Well, we have a cadence that we say there as well. But like, if you had forgotten the phrase, but I gave you the sing-songy tone, that's more context for you to fill in the gaps. What's missing. Even if you forgot the word allegiance, then with the sing-songy tone, that could give you more information to fill in what's there.
So all it is providing more links, like almost like synapse links for my brain.
It's another dimension beneath the actual words.
I guess that's an unromantic explanation of why, like, we think musically in some ways.
It's a great explanation. It's cool.
It is
cool
cool.
Explanation.
Well, I was gonna
it's
say
not magic.
it's not magic, and I don't want it to be magic, but I want to think that there's something mysterious about beats and rhythms. But you're just saying it's not even beats and rhythms; it's just another layer.
It's just another layer of information.
And like rhyming.
Again, this is what I go back. This is what I'm talking about a little bit when I say music is overrated, because I think there are people out there that believe that we have some deep biological innate love of music and like it's in our brain to like music, and I don't think
or
that's
our
the
ancestral beats of like around a campfire and like beating and we're dancing.
So
it's not
I don't buy
harkening back to ancestral.
I don't buy it. No.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't buy that necessarily either.
You
but
can try to convince me, but like I don't think it really holds that much water. Is all.
I like though the idea of, obviously, if you think about time as being this linear thing, and we're at the forefront of time, and we're at we have stories of our ancestors, and but singing the songs that they were singing, music feels very alive in the moment, right? It's being produced and it's alive. And so if you're singing an old chant or anthem or whatever that they sang, and you're dancing, so you're expressing yourself and singing the way that they were doing, that unique form of, I jokingly call it time travel, but like this interconnectedness, this way of reaching back that is different than just listening to a story, reading their stories. Like you're living the way they were living in that moment in it. But that's not even musical. It's just repeating something they were doing and understanding. That's why traditions and ceremonies.
You could do the same thing, reenacting a battle from the past
yep.
battle.
Or if all the ceremonies they would perform. That's why we do ceremonies in a large way.
And all that stuff
all of our ceremonies are
that.
Markers saying we are now different. Transformation moments in society. Yeah. Hero's journey stuff. Yeah.
So that's an interesting segue, drawing things from the past and all of that, because one thing that I wanted to talk about is your recent reinvigoration of your love for video games, particularly Super Nintendo games.
Yes.
That's what you've been like that's basically what you've been doing with your time unwinding after all of this busy school stuff, right?
My most recent hobby, I mean, I've been reading a lot this summer too, but reading is, I'm not going to call it a chore. It's a labor in a way that like sitting back and watching a movie or playing a video game is not. Like I can be tired and whatever and still turn on a video game, whereas I can't do that with reading. So this is my leisurely like pastime, and gotten back into not just gaming's intimidating nowadays, even though I know games have gotten easier. But first of all, the investment to a system. Like you buy this game and like something simple about like say the 16-bit era of Super Nintendo and Sega, and there's like a linear fashion, yet the graphics they're charming and nostalgic, yet and linear in a way. Like, so a lot of them are just go to the right. Not all of them. That would be boring if it was just go to the right, jump on some platform, shoot some bad guys, and finish the level. Yeah. But even that can be so satisfying.
So there's a simplicity in both the visual presentation and the gameplay.
Yes.
Like, that's a big distinction. Like, I play video games as a hobby as well, and those two things are both really important aspects of a game. How does it look? How does it play?
Yes.
And my personal taste is how does it play is the more important of those factors. And if you're getting so much enjoyment out of these 16-bit games that by modern standards don't look as good, but they play good,
yes,
then that's kind of you're kind of making a value judgment here.
Yeah, I think in some ways retro gaming, they don't look as good. There's no doubt, but there's a charm about seeing the colors, the pixelated characters in the world.
Some of them are artful.
And they do look good. Yeah, there's still expression. That's the thing. In 16-bit gaming, I would actually say in 8-bit gaming, not so much. Yeah. Like NES stuff, it can look bad, and the sound is grating and all of this. But with like Super NES stuff, the character design, they still had big limitations. So if they chose the artwork for a bad guy to look a particular way, you can appreciate. Like you gain an internal idea of what are the limitations that they can work with, how do they work within that, and how do they produce something so awesome and crazy looking. So I still get so much pleasure from the graphics. Like it's not it's not impressive in a modern game if they add. Well, not. I should say. Let me take that back. You're playing a modern game and you open up a book on the ground, and the book actually has pages and text in it. That's pretty cool. Someone had to go write the text, so that's respectable. But it's not thrilling in the way that in a 16-bit game you figure out this in Zelda. Say there's in Link to the Past. A room opens up and the wall moves and the whole ground moves. Like there's a thrill about that visually that I don't get when I see. Imagine you're playing a modern game and the wall crumbles. Like, okay, I mean it's neat, but I don't feel any thrill, and I feel thrill in 16-bit gaming when unusual visuals happen.
Well, I think that there's something about limitations that spurs on creativity, right? So when
haikus, writing haikus.
Yeah, sure, right, exactly. Like in a 16-bit game, you obviously have fewer tools at your disposal to put what you want onto the screen. Like you're limited in terms of memory, in terms of sound, in terms of the amount of enemies on screen and all of that kind of thing, and it forces you to think outside the box. And also as a player, when they do something crazy like shake the whole screen, that stands out to you because it breaks the rules that you're used to seeing in the game. In a modern game, one that tries to approach photorealism, like there's less they can do to break the rules.
Right, I see it as boundless
like it's
anyway.
Closer to reality, and so like they're trying to play into reality. The older games are almost trying to make you map what you think is reality onto these blocks and bit pixels and stuff.
So that's a short way of saying I think 16-bit games can surprise you in a way that if I already enter into a modern game thinking the limits are reasonably boundless, like then I can't expect a game to do everything, but it can do any one thing, if that makes sense. Like any modern game could have a giant dragon.
A flying game should have really good plane controls, but you don't expect to be able to turn on the radio in the plane and hear some great whistling.
Yes, so it can do any one thing, but 16-bit. If you already are doing, you understand the confines. So when it breaks those confines or goes outside of that, it surprises you, and that surprise is so uniquely pleasant. I also feel like it is. We were talking about time, the idea of time traveling with music and things. Like I feel like I'm interacting with a video game that has, say, I'm playing Metroid, Super Metroid, for the first time. I'm not a gamer. I'm not claiming to be a gamer. I know, but I'm participating in a piece of work, a game that has lore and has such fandom that has spanned over decades, and so playing that for the first time. And experiencing, all the little secrets and having the exploration it has. I have a respect for the production of it. The pacing of this feels like a modern game. It feels eerie and creepy, and the music and all of it gets packaged really well. But I guess my point is, I don't know what my point is other than
and there's also. It makes you, or maybe it makes you think. You can tell me if this is true or not. But it makes you imagine how when people were playing this, when it was new, like it makes you feel like you're back then playing it as if it was new. And there's probably also a component too of imagining how, oh wow, no one could just look up, the answer to this.
Yeah.
And so, God, imagine if I was playing this without any help or any
It
tools.
is so easy to do that. When I'm playing a Super NES game, it's so easy to imagine myself back in the 90s playing it. I don't know how to explain. I don't know why it's so easy to imagine, but it
probably
is.
Probably because you did play.
Oh yeah, a lot of these games I'm replaying.
You played them in the 90s, and so you know that feeling, and now you're mimicking a lot of that same thing today, and so it's easy for you to say, it's like that time in the past.
Yes. So it's easy for me to map on, and so the nostalgia is there. But even playing Super Metroid, which I never played, I get the benefit of nostalgia, even though you
don't have the original thing,
which I would argue that's why something like Stranger Things, people are watching that today that had never watched, E.T. and various, things, and they still feel it's. I do believe you can experience nostalgia without having the memory to, and that's a or I don't know if it's a bad thing.
I think that's
it's
a
okay.
cool
It's a
phenomenon.
cool phenomenon. Yeah, I don't understand why, but it's really, really cool. Okay, so my point of this gaming, so it's not intimidating to approach a 16-bit game.
Yeah.
You're participating in like historically significant gaming, because my understanding is no matter where you fall on your preferences and which system you think is the best, Super NES and that 16-bit gaming era is like the golden age of gaming. From my understanding, really. I mean,
to me, it's up there. It's definitely up there. For a lot of people, I think
it's smooth. Look, a lot of garbage games were made, no doubt, but like for the most part, the games, every great game on the system, it works, it's smooth, it's immensely playable, and just so entertaining. And so, like, the investment isn't that, you can sit back, you can relax, and I actually appreciate the challenge at the same time. So, like, modern gaming doesn't have you, I'll call it grind, like have to become an expert in a particular area. And the version I'm playing, the Super NES Classic.
Yeah, you've got a cool little thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, long story short, there's a Super NES Classic, which I believe had about 20 games, an $80 price point of some of the classic games. And it had a pause and rewind feature and a save state at any point. And then I bought a modded one with every single game released in the US. So no Super Famicom games. But it's over 1,580 games. That's including the NES, by the way. Okay. So 1,580 games, tons of throwaway games, by the way. Like, and I don't mean throwaway as in like these aren't. They all work and everything.
That's another difference between games then and games now, is that then you could have professionally. I mean, all games were professionally made, but you could have professionally made throwaway games. Shovelware is a term that people use a lot. Whereas today, most of the there's kind of been a split. You either have indie games that are independently published, which is kind of a recent phenomenon, or you have big budget AAA games. And like back in the day, there was this middle ground for like AA games, where people could have a relatively modest budget and still produce a game that has some soul.
And when you have those AAA games, they're soulless primarily because they need to please everybody, and they need to play it safe, and they're not going to take the risks. And so you have quirky like platformers and quirky shoot 'em ups and quirky whatever.
We've been playing. It's why you've been here. We've been playing a lot of 2-player stuff, and like we played Goof Troop.
Yes.
And Goof Troop was great.
Such a good game.
It was a lot of fun.
It was a puzzle-based game with some action-adventure elements, or there are bad guys in it that you have to dodge their stuff.
Throw some pots at them and stuff. But like it was, fairly challenging and fun, and beat it in about 3 hours or something.
Right.
So short, but like it was well made, and like that's what I would consider. Like I wouldn't consider it shovelware because it's not a bad game,
right?
But it's definitely not a AAA game getting produced.
And so
where you can't. I mean, you're not gonna get a Goof Troop game.
There is no modern era Goof Troop equivalent.
Yeah,
and that's what I didn't understand too. With I want my game like, okay, look, I'm an adult guy who has things to do, so I want to beat this. I want to play a game and I want to beat it in a week or so. I don't have time to make giant investments. So games are intimidating to get into, right? Because there's a learning curve, and even the great games out like now, I'm not saying they're not great, but they just aren't easy. The access point is intimidating. That's all. Whereas there's almost
they're probably easier than you think.
I'm probably overselling the how
But there is no question that there are more games that require a greater investment of time today than there were then. So that's a valid.
I guess that's what I mean is that. So take the new Zelda game,
Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild is an amazing game. I'm not even saying it's particularly difficult. I'm sure I could play it and master it. When you hand me a game and say this is an 80-hour game, 100-hour game, whatever, it's like, I don't have time for that right now. But if you hand me a game and say this is a 3-hour fun play, oh yeah, that's going to be my weekend thing. And then I'll end up, the irony being I might play 180 hours worth of, or 3-hour games, 180 hours worth of a bunch of them. But I like the clear resolution quickly and the satisfaction of finishing these games. And like I said, like, there's some charm to both the intro and ending of the games. Like, a lot of them are still frames with a little bit of motion. I don't even know what you would call that. Yeah. And just silly dialogue, and you're reading text box a lot. But like, it's neat to see all of that stuff. It's just neat. So I've really enjoyed the hobby.
What's been your favorite game that you've played so far? How many have you played, roughly? Maybe 2 dozen? A dozen?
A dozen's probably more accurate. I mean, I've sampled. If you're talking about what I've sampled, a lot. But because, I mean, I have so many games. But I've probably beaten a dozen games. And, I'll say what's impressed me the most is Super Mario World playing it. I mean, it's silly to I'm going to say some classic games, right? Because that's what I'm playing right now. I haven't even gotten to the more obscure stuff. So playing Super Mario World is so expansive. I mean, it's well over 100 worlds. But what I don't remember as a kid is those certain levels having the key to unlock it and multiple exits and the Star World, and like then all the Star Worlds give you a map that give you to an additional world, and those levels are really hard. And so the music on the games, I'm realizing how important that is. And so, you know, you take something like a Ghost House in Super Mario World, and like you actually feel creeped out by it, and you're like, oh my god, anxious. Yeah, I feel very anxious based on the music. Yeah, those doors and the ghosts. Like, I don't even like the levels because not because of the gameplay or the idea that these ghosts are floating after you, but the music in combination with all that just freaks me out. So there's that. So that. And all the different worlds and the flavor. I guess I would call that all of those things combined the flavor. So the flavor of Super Mario World's amazing. All different flavors. Its charm is off the charts. Just, I understand why it still makes... If you look up... I mean, I'm going to go ahead and put my reputation on the line for gaming anyway. And say, if you Google any top 20 games of all time, Super Mario World... It's gonna be on it. Just gonna be on it. If not top 10, and I get some of that is nostalgia playing a role, but it was so amazing.
It's a fun game.
Then you take some game. Let me give you one that is not good, but I enjoy playing. Is like Aladdin and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. They both you can sit down and beat within 2 hours, and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is a beat 'em up, but the last 2 levels become a one-on-one fighter when you're in the Megazord, and it changes format, which is that you talk about surprise and appreciation. You're like, I get to be in a one-on-one fighter. Is that what they're called, or kind of the Mortal Kombat ilk, right? Fighter. So fighters. So it becomes those for the last 2 levels. That's really, really exciting, and it gives you that feeling of being big, like you're in an ocean and you break a few buildings and stuff like that. And so that's awesome. And then Aladdin, I played over and over as a kid, so that nostalgia was amazing. Donkey Kong is a quality game. The graphics remain... Donkey Kong Country, yeah, I should always verify that, or be clear about that. But, so the graphics are great, the level design is awesome, and again, charm with all the bad guys. The music's so great, yes. Each level, honestly, all the water levels have, I believe, the same music, but it feels like it belongs. It belongs. Donkey Kong music might be the best music that I could, if you were to lift it and just have like, I'm working on, some lesson plans, just play some Donkey Kong music in the background, and I'm happy. Like, it's good stuff. And then right now, Metroid really has quickly shot up because it feels like a modern game created. It wouldn't have surprised me if you said this is someone making a game today. Just we're gonna do a 16-bit era game, like graphics. That's what it feels like to me.
Well, actually, you say that, but a couple of years ago, it was 2 or 3 years ago, I guess, some guy, some guy made his own remake of Metroid 2, which was originally a Game Boy game, the old Game Boy. And it's called AM2R, another Metroid 2 remake, because it's one of the most remade games. But anyway, he made it, and it looks like Super Metroid, and it plays like Super Metroid, and it's really good.
I recall you even talking about how good that was.
Yeah, I downloaded it and played it and loved it. It was a really great Metroid game. But you can, because it was good, we can say that there's something valuable about the style of the original Super Nintendo 16-bit game. You can make it in modern times, and it's still good. It's still a quality game. The gameplay is good. It looks good. The atmosphere is good. I love Super Metroid, obviously. It's one of my favorite games. So.
And then a game I have to mention is Zelda: A Link to the Past.
Very solid game.
And I had that as a kid. It was way over my head. It's almost funny to think about.
So I'm wondering if, because a possibility that Nintendo makes a N64 classic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they make that, and then in 5 years some modder makes a modded
All the
N64 with
N64s,
all of them, like, would you buy that and play N64 games, or do you find those intimidating?
They are more intimidating. Well, okay, so I'm curious about I resisted RPG games and just reading lots of text and sort of accumulation of items and turn-based, like fighting systems and stuff like that. I still haven't gotten there, and I'll see if I will. Like, I'm going to play a ton of games on this system. I invested in it. I'm enjoying myself.
So are you going to play like Chrono Trigger or something?
I'm going to start with Mario RPG. If it's miserable, then I will try Chrono Trigger or
I never played
World.
Chrono Trigger. So.
Chrono Trigger is considered like the best, or
there's like a Final Fantasy on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, Final Fantasy
right?
3, which in America it's Final Fantasy 3. It was Final Fantasy 6 in Japan, I think. And then there's World Outer. I don't know. This quirky game. If you don't know about it, I'm sorry.
Earthbound.
Earthbound. That's actually what I was. I was like World.
I did play Earthbound. Yeah.
Was it good? It's quirky and strange.
It's weird. Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. And so that sounded appealing to me. Just something that. So I'm not big. If you start saying dragons and knights and wizards and stuff, I'm like, okay. So Earthbound is like a guy in modern era, and it's or modern-ish, and
there's some psychic.
And
stuff.
Then weird stuff happens.
It's weird. It's so strange.
Well, I don't.
Game.
Yeah, I don't mind. Well, that's what when you say strange and quirky, my ears perk up because I just think that like, okay, I like this sort of stuff.
When I think about it, it doesn't. And I know you and your taste. It doesn't seem like a game you would like. But if it was you trying to test out your boundaries, it seems like it would be a good game for you to revisit an RPG game. To see if you like it. And it's not like you're not like accumulating a giant inventory and upping your stats and all that. It's not really like that. So that might cut out some of the elements that normally bore you.
The reason I resisted RPG games in the past was I was a kid and I had a narrow conceptualization of what games are, and that was in RPG games. I wanted to fight or jump or platform or whatever, and so when I would see an RPG, I just thought, this is bad. I can't. The idea of turn-based strategy stuff was a joke. You're not going to allow me to fight. I'm going to click an option and read some stats. I mean, that was just so ew to me that. And I understand that I carry that with me to this day, even though I'm a different person than I was then. You carry these things with you of going, this is so bad, and then you honestly you take that with like, that's when the okay, if you're doing turn-based stuff, you better impress me with the graphics, and 16-bit gaming is limited, and so I'm like, oh really, am I gonna enjoy this at all? But I need to think of it as more like I'm playing a board game, and like if I restructure, I just have to rethink gaming in that way, and that's why Mario seems like a very comfortable way into, well, anything. They just do things well. So I'll take a silly, like, my understanding is Super Mario RPG is that what it's called? Super Mario RPG is just it's relaxed and silly and fun.
It's made by the Final Fantasy people.
Yeah, well, all of that. So I'm down for expanding.
I think that you would like. I mean, it's not on the Super Nintendo, but I think you would like Paper Mario games. That would be a good. If you weren't.
That's RPG, you're saying, yeah.
If you weren't starting with Super Mario RPG, that would be a good place to start.
Well,
it's on the N64.
It's funny. Well, I will make the jump to N64 if they do make that system, and I think they probably would.
There's not quite as many excellent games on the N64 as on Super Nintendo.
There's still a big library, and a lot are garbage.
A lot tied to our childhood as well.
Yes, that's enough for me to do it.
Yeah.
And so it'd be funny if I'm just always playing something about 20 years, 30 years behind. So,
did you ever play Star Wars Episode 1 Racer on the N64?
No, I did not.
I saw they just released that recently, like a kind of a HD version or whatever. But it's the N64 game, and they released it everywhere, and I was very tempted to buy it.
Like on the Switch.
Yeah, on all
everything.
Definitely on the Switch, and I was very tempted to buy it just because I didn't play that game as a kid. I think I might have rented it once or something, but it was really good.
There was a game I played, and I've heard you talk a lot about various Star Wars games, and so you'll have to tell me, but it had to be some sort of Empire Strikes Back because first of all,
on the Super Nintendo?
No, on N64, where one of the levels I was in
Shadows of the Empire, probably.
That sounds right. So it was a lot of walking around, and then one of them was in the snow level, and it was fun, so fun, and you had to trip up the drone thing, big. Sorry.
Well, there was also Star Wars Rogue Squadron on the N64 as well. The first.
You loved that, right?
Awesome.
And that's what I did not play.
But on the GameCube, there was Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2, and it was.
That's what I'm thinking.
It was even better. It was so good, and it looked amazing. And honestly, if graphics stayed at the GameCube level. Right. I would be okay with that.
Well, N64 did have something to be desired, but GameCube did sort of fill in those desires. It was just smoother, better, good. It was just good, very
enough.
good.
You could convey enough of your artistic vision on the screen to get across what you're going for.
There was some Star Fox game you had that I recall, his tail you could distinguish.
Star Fox Adventures. Yeah,
so you could distinguish fur and grass in the field blowing in the wind. And once you're at that point, okay. Yeah,
I think maybe GameCube I would be happy with, or to please most people, maybe bump it up to the Xbox 360, the intro HD era, 720p, just let's cut it right there for a couple decades until we get our hover TVs and our hover
until
Nintendos.
We make a substantive difference because
modern games it's just diminishing returns to me.
I'd rather have all those in 60 frames per second instead of whatever the
standard is. A lot of times they don't even make 30.
Yeah. I mean it's just
harder to play.
It's just
that's another thing about the Super Nintendo is that most of the games have high frame rate.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are 60, right? And it just they play and they work and they're awesome. I mean, there's weird things. So if you play a beat 'em up, it's a hack and slash, whatever. And so but you generally agree that B is the jump and Y is attack or something like that. And then a game will say, no, we're gonna make A the jump and just to be different. And that's stupid because we have sort of a memory we've internalized. But all this is sort of in the weeds.
What do you think about, I don't know if you'll have much insight into this since you don't play a lot of modern games, but what do you think about the change that has happened between what they call couch co-op? When you play a multiplayer game, when you both have your controllers plugged into the system, you're sitting next to each other, you're playing in person. That's very rare today. In fact, a lot of consoles don't even allow.
They don't bother with it.
You can't even play together with two controllers plugged in. It's all online multiplayer.
Could you potentially, if you had to spend the night party as a kid, and would you be playing online next to each other?
Yeah,
that's how you do it.
Conceivably, that would be how you do it. Is you have two TVs and two systems, and you're both connected to your same internet connection playing. What do you think about the I don't know. What are your thoughts on the differences between the two? And because I have some opinions on the matter.
When you say that, my knee jerk, I don't have any experience, so I'm weighing in as an outsider, and that is that it's just reflecting the times, and I think the times are poor in terms of what does it mean to be social. And video games have always been sort of you should go outside and live the real world, right. That. We know that sort of mantra, but.
Your video tape.
but the weirdness is if you're playing online, that's what's happening most of the time anyway. So that it's a reflection of our current era more than it is. But so that's what it is. It's just what does it mean to be social? There are less spend the night parties with your best friend because if I'm a teenager and I get to play my video games with you. Well into 1 a.m. on a weeknight or on the weekend, why would you kind of come over and hang out for 24 hours? Because honestly, as a human, if I have power to do what I want when I want, then I can plug in and hang out with Bennett for the times I want to play the video game, and then I want to do my own thing and do this. So my relationship with you is fundamentally changed. You are there to be there when I want you there, and you're gone when I want you gone.
Right, yeah.
And so
that's how our friendship is.
That's the problem, though, with the digital era is I want to engage or I don't want to engage, and I get that choice. Whereas I sort of, as a kid, am saying, Bennett's gonna come spend the night, and so that means like there might be times we have to about conflict resolution, whatever, or deciding what we want to do next. Or I kind of wish he wasn't here because I want to do this and he doesn't. But like I have to deal with that, and you don't have to deal with that in the modern era. That it's the same reason like people are getting their driver's licenses later. They are. Getting jobs. They're doing a lot of. They don't need to move out as soon. They're getting married later. You can look at everything as extended.
Interesting.
Adolescence has been extended in large part because there's no desire.
And like a lot of people would say that adolescence begins earlier too, because you're exposed to everything a lot earlier, and it's extended. What does that do to people when you have an adolescence that it
can be the majority of your life.
Doubled,
yes.
It's doubled in length from what we experienced, and maybe we even experienced an extended one. But
we did to some degree.
To some degree, but now it's a whole other thing.
Well, it changes your value system. For one, is like we crave independence and privacy were two fundamental, I would say American, but I would also just say human. We want to be independent. We want to get out of the home. But if you're already getting a taste of that independence, and if I'm hanging out with my girlfriend digitally as a 14-year-old well into the night, I have no motivation to want to like leave home and be able to hang out with my girlfriend well into the night. I know human or in face-to-face and digital is different, but like kids make that differentiation less and less. How much different is it really would be the question they would say. Like, what can't you do? I mean, so yeah.
Well, that's kind of we took it to a much farther and honestly more interesting place, but that's kind of where I was going with the couch co-op versus online multiplayer thing, because I felt that change because I used to enjoy playing together, on the N64 playing Mario Party or Mario Kart, all sitting in the same room playing split screen. And you have the four corners of the screen, and each person is playing.
You had to earn it. You had to literally get people together, call them up on the phone, make sure they had enough controllers, maybe that extender pack of so you could play in 4 to 8 or whatever it was. Yeah, you had to earn it more, and so it felt rewarding once you've earned it more.
And then even into high school, I played a lot of Halo, the very first Halo game on the Xbox.
Huge.
And then you couldn't play online for the first Halo. The Xbox Live wasn't around yet.
Thing.
And so you had to get together and play split screen. And me and my friends, this was like in 9th grade for me, like we would carry our tube TVs,
heavy TVs. Talk about earning it.
Putting them in our cars. We were.
Couldn't you get up to 8 players if you did 2 TVs 4 ways or something like that?
You could do. I think it was 8. I think you could do 4-on-4.
Because there were 4 jacks for an Xbox. So.
Definitely. I'm trying to think if you could do more. Definitely in later Halo games you could do.
You would need
more.
to. Why bring more TVs?
Well, I mean, I'm saying you could definitely have 4-on-4. I'm trying to think if you could do 8-on-8. I don't think you could do 8-on-8 until later Halo games.
Okay.
But 4-on-4 you could. Am I right on that? Maybe you could. You could do bigger battles. Man. Anyway, it was a long time ago, so I'm blanking on the numbers, but it doesn't matter. The point is, like, we would lug our giant tube TVs, and the Xboxes were giant too.
Yes.
Lug them, and the
controllers
were giant too.
Everything was giant.
We would lug them all together, and we would string the LAN cables around, and we would have 2 teams, and we would play capture the flag, and it was a blast to sit with each other, and you could screen cheat and look at the other corner of the screen.
But
that's
bad,
why
right?
we had 2 TVs eventually, But like, it was a very. I mean, it was a very social thing. You're interacting and you're having a lot of fun together. And then, like, I think I have a almost experimental comparison, because then Halo 2 came out, and that's when Xbox Live started. And so everything moved to Xbox Live, where you're playing online.
Yeah.
And so then you are playing with your headset, and, it's kind of the modern online gaming experience. And it changed. It was still fun, and I still did it, but it was less fun, and I did it less. And it's not because the game was really any worse. And like, it was just, you're not in the room with your friends all having a good time. You're trying to talk on the headset, and you can't see what people are doing. You can't see their expressions and their reaction, and it just feels more foreign and less connected.
And I think it boils down to something simple too. Like, if you're in the room and maybe you feel like quitting, but like there's pressure not to, and where else are you going to go? And are you actually going to invest in leaving this environment? And so you end up sticking around and playing another game, and then you have some great experiences. Online, you will leave because there's almost no cost to leaving, and that's the same thing. I mean, that's why we have throwaway relationships, throwaway everything. Like, you can leave a relationship easily, a lot more easily. You can leave anything and everything just easily. Whereas, like, when you are face to face,
that's an interesting thing, because it kind of tells you that when you're in a virtual interaction, let's see, how can I phrase this? When you're in a real in-person interaction, you're almost in a different place than you are when you're having the same sort of communication in a virtual space. So, like, even what our interaction right now, like, we're both sitting at a table having a conversation, and it feels like a different place than when we do this podcast, virtually. And I think the same can be said when you're sitting in a room playing video games with your friend. It's maybe place isn't the right word because it implies a spatial relationship, but it's definitely a different situation. Like, even if you're sitting on the same couch with the same controller on the same TV, the fact that there are other people there with you makes it a different situation. And maybe it is because you can't extract yourself as easily.
Yes, I think that's a big one.
I think that's a big part of it, but
I have to deal with my consequences more. I might even argue with you differently. If I disagree with you, I'm more likely to be amicable or agreeable, or maybe that's not the right word, agreeable.
That's right.
But
amicable.
Well, agreeable, because we were talking about it earlier.
Sure.
But like if I'm online, especially if I'm raised more on the digital space, and I am annoyed with you, and I can go screw you, Bennett, and then get offline, or leave. I can leave the relationship easier.
That's true.
But being in person, I have to think a little more carefully. Like this, I'm on a trip here. I cannot. If I were fed up with you,
you're stuck with me.
Like, I'm stuck. So I have a vested interest in problem solving through something. If I were to have it, I know that's a little silly, but if I were to have that,
right?
But that's the whole thing about when you're a kid. Time is different when you're a kid. 24 hours is a long time. There are occasional times where it might be like, you're going to spend Friday and Saturday night. Like, you got the weekend, and okay, well, we're probably going to either be bored or frustrated with each other at some point in that time. And that sort of collaboration necessary to overcome the boredom or the friction is just huge. And that's what I'm saying. The difference between face-to-face and digital is hugely because of the exit. I know there's different because of you can't see each other. There's difference about nonverbal communication, and those are all not. I mean, they are substantive differences, but it's all about like throwaway versus fix. Like, you gotta fix it, and like, you were in this situation versus I can throw it away, and I will if I am given that choice. Especially if I haven't experienced the other. Of course, I'm gonna throw it. Why would I engage in something uncomfortable when I can engage in something comfortable? That's why people are fat today. Most people are fat. Why would I go run when I could sit on a comfortable couch in air-conditioned room and watch something fun and eat delicious food?
That's a profound point, that given the choice, people will make the easy choice. And there's nothing... I mean, that doesn't make you a bad person.
It makes it of course you're that way.
That you have to take extra care in planning your environment so that the easy choice isn't as easy as it might otherwise be.
Yes.
And like, in this age of convenience, we don't... And also, many people aren't planners. Through no fault of their own, they don't necessarily have the foresight to arrange their life in a way that encourages them to make the more difficult choices. And so you get pummeled with easy choices.
Yes.
It's always easy choices.
Yes.
And it's so easy to just not put in as much effort as you could.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have such shared efficiency. Everything is efficient. We have systems that take the waste that drops out of our butts and sends it through pipes away from us.
Waste alone, even our garbage right now. I don't think about my garbage because I take it out and it goes away. Like, I can just literally, oh man, I gotta take out the trash. Is how I think of how annoying it is that I have to remove it by literally taking it away and it goes away.
I have to remove this liner that someone made for me that conveniently wraps up my garbage and has a built-in tie that ties it together so it doesn't spill. And I have to take that to the big container that someone's job.
Some mystery person comes in, takes it to some mystery place.
A mystery place where it just doesn't bother.
Whereas if I were in the woods, I'd have to, and living there, like off the
grid.
fat of the land, off the grid of the land.
Yep, off the grid of the land, off the land grid.
Off the land grid. I would have to start going, where am I gonna? I can keep pooping in this hole. Do you know what I mean? Like, I have to really consider. Location. And like, I've finished a meal and there's some bones. Like, oh, do I throw them in the poop pit, or like I have to consider everything I do and how far. Like, I mean, that was anyway. Just like we
have it easy.
We have it so easy. We have it too easy, and so we start to go crazy.
Well, I think that there's a distinction. I mean, we have it too. I don't know if I would say we have it too easy. But we have it easy, and we aren't self-disciplined enough to keep ourselves from wasting away or getting gigantic, depending on what it is here, whatever it is you're doing. But people's perseverance and grit and willpower, it's so easy to let it atrophy. That's a good word for it, atrophy, because you're able to take the easy way out.
I think that. You can say, is life too easy, and look at the divorce rate, and as a like we needed the dependency on a relationship to sort of like tag team life, and as it got easier, you don't actually need it, and so then we're together and just go, oh, this is because a relationship's difficult. You got to think of another person, and you lose any romantic ideals of like it's all going to be perfect. So when they're not perfect. When they're not perfect and you're annoyed and you can exit, you do exit. And if there aren't morals and values attached to it. So the divorce rate skyrocketing is, I think, directly correlated with the ease of our lives currently.
Here's an interesting question. Like you kind of touched on, in the modern, social media digital age, it's easy to just end interactions, definitely, and even relationships. It's easy to just block someone. Yep. And now you do not have to have a relationship with that person. You can block them on all your various avenues. I wonder if the ease of excising someone from your life digitally influences people to more readily excise people from their life in person. I wonder if there's any sort of influence there.
I'm gonna say yes. I don't think you can extract. If this is how if we catalog it in our brain as this is how I operate within relationships, and obviously there's difference between romantic relationships and friendships, but I still think that it still holds true of like how do I interact with another human being is sort of a big picture that's just you start to frame that, operate within that framework. So I do. I think you just. When the ability to exit is so pervasive, then, I mean, that's why I keep saying look at the divorce rates to see that. Ease of life, ease of exit. That when you say ease of life, it is ease of exit, right? Like, oh, it's hot outside. Ease of exit is we have air conditioning. So discomforts are there. Ease of exit of discomfort. Right. And so you can... So marriage...
You don't have to learn how to cope, but you have to learn, we have learned how to escape or avoid.
Yes, escape and avoidance is easier than coping, and so therefore we just do that instead. And so it applies to some of the most important aspects of our lives, like the most intimate relationships we have, marriage and that sort of thing, and friendship, deep friendships anyway. Yeah. So. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think I'm done talking.
Yeah, me too. I think so too. Let's just not make this one a big one. We have our awkward goodbyes, but
I'm gonna block you now, and our relationship is done.
All right, that's okay.
But wait, actually, you're here.
Oh God, I guess we got to work this out. Freaking A. All right. Well, I guess we'll continue talking after this, but less,
That was fun. I like live podcasts.
I do too.
Why don't you come back in a couple weeks?
Okay, just every couple weeks we just go.
Every couple weeks, and we'll do it.
All right, well, I'm going to use the restroom.
Yeah, man. Restroom.